Good morning and welcome back to my channel. So today is a Friday and I'm coming to the end of the semester for school, and it feels a little bit good. And then I have one more semester. I'm studying a bachelor's of interior design, and what little people know about this is, you know, when it comes to interior design, some people think it's just about selecting paint colors, finishes, and um, different decor items, which that is a part of it, but that's kind of the last thing. With interior design, there's a lot of different elements you can. There's one of my preferable parts of interior design, and an avenue that I've gone down is related to building code. So the building code is something that, just depending on what province you live in or what country you live in, it can. I live in Ontario, so there's the Ontario Building Code that's in action that is under the after the National Building Code, which is Canada's building code, and so we follow that one, but it's referenced off of the National Building Code. So the building code covers all the life safety and fire safety elements that are involved in the interior and exterior of a building. That's more of the technical side. Also for other technical sides, there's things like we do a lot of floor plans. So we do legal construction documents for floor plans. So instead of like an architect would probably more so, create the building envelope and do the inside as well. But as interior designer, we would take a building envelope, take all the interior partitions and walls and remove them or add them or change them. Of course, this would have to be approved by an engineer to make sure that it is feasible. But we do put in, we would put in the new walls, demising walls, new partitions. Then we then do a floor plan, and everything has to meet codes. So that all, for example, all the doors have to be 860 millimeters wide, and the hallways have to be 1100 millimeters wide as well. And then there has to be circulation space, and then we have to make sure that there's, depending on the building size, that there's barrier-free and accessibility accommodations, which can be in the form of having universal washrooms or barrier-free washrooms, again depending on the building. So there's the whole accessible element that has to be considered, so that all users of the space can actually access and use the building. So that's another thing that we have to consider as well. There's always like space contradicting, what can actually be allowed, or like how to use the best space, but then also accommodating for enough space so that users can move throughout the space safely and effectively. So so there's that portion. So there's like the accessibility. Then there's also sustainability. Sustainability is a huge thing in a lot of many different sectors. So for sustainability, we have to make sure that some of the products that we're using, that there's no like emissions coming off of them, like an off gas. For example, like some floorings will have an off gas, and that will make the interior environment unhealthy. There's the HVAC system that we have to consider too, so to make sure that there's different filters with them, especially in this post-pandemic world. Another thing is, how do we design for the pandemic, and that would be included in the HVAC, having like some sort of a filter to help with that kind of thing. Then there's also making sure that the building is safe and wellness. So like having wellness within the building to make sure it's a healthy building. So maybe including some interior feature walls that include, a green wall to help bring in some to combat some of the CO2 that might be in the building. But then there's also the wellness of the users of the space. So, for example, if it's an office building, to have things such as like a meditation room or a prayer room or a fitness room that people can take a break from the computer and go and do have their little space to do something a little bit different to promote wellness and more effectivity in the building. But besides all of that too, there's then there's also, when it comes down to so we would typically do like a partition plan, which shows all the different walls and partitions that are going to be in the building. We would also maybe do a demolition plan to show what's going to be removed and show what's going to be staying. And then we would do a partition plan of what's going to be implemented into the new space. After we do the partition plan, usually comes the millwork plan. So we put in all like what if it's, for example, we'll use an office. So like if the office is going to have a kitchenette or a servery, what's going to be fixed millwork and what's going to be kind of like custom millwork that's going to go in, and we will show that. And then that would also probably include the plumbing fixtures. So what and depending, and this is when the building code kind of comes in, depending on the occupancy of the space, the amount of stairs. So there's like the occupancy from the bathroom level, the occupancy of just the space total, depending on the occupancy classification. So for an office, it's a group D occupancy. So that would, and instead of using, oh gosh, this is, there's a formula that you put in, and based on that, there's the amount of people that can be on a given floor based on what the space is going to be housing. So that will deter the amount of people that are going to be there. So there's the exit capacity. So based on how many exits are in the building, that will decrease the number. Based on the occupancy type, that will give you your number. And then also the washrooms. So the washrooms can either be, you set it and then that controls occupancy or vice versa. So so that's another component as well. So there's the washrooms, and that will also let you know how many sinks are going to be put in, how many toilets are going to be put in, and if there's, and how many of those are going to be barrier free and accessible as well. So there's a lot of given things. So after that plan would come the furniture plan. So the furniture plan includes all the furniture that's going to be going into the space. This can help like for setting up the final touches of the design, and it can also help present and pitch your design to potential clients, to different people. Like if you're presenting to an office and they're trying to buy your design, or if you're working for a certain company or furniture sellers, so the furniture plan helps with a lot. And mind you, I should put, I don't think I have a floor plan on me, but mind you, all these elements within the floor plan are then given a tag. So for furniture, what we've done in school, we've done like F1 is like the first furniture piece, and every single piece are tagged, and then there's a chart that for each element in the floor plans that is given a specific number, and then you go into the chart, and then it usually has an image. It has the SKU number, it has the SKU number, I guess. It has the manufacturer, the details, the finishes, the and whether the finishes are like a flame spud rating, if they're contract, if they're a residential, the grade of the textile, so if there's so many different double rubs so that it can last in that type of building. So each item is, and to some it might be, oh, whatever, it's like a desk and a chair. No, it is a lot more. It's down to the very details of like, to the shelving, to where the toilet paper dispenser is going to be. Like it gets to be a lot, and then these can be further broadened down into detailed drawings. So for example, apparently a door drawing, which I've done before, it has a lot of elements. Also, back to the partition plan, usually we do a cut of, like a section cut of the wall to show what's in there, like how many gypsum wall boards are attached. So if there's 2 gypsum wall boards, then there's the sheath having the vapor barrier, and then it would show the stud, the different insulation types, and then the other side to show what each partition and demising wall, as well as walls that are going to be used in this space. So then also we would probably in our partition plan to put the door schedules to show what the various doors are going to be within the building, just to say, and that just helps place where the doors are going to go, what type are going to be used, if it's going to be a metal door with honeycomb filling, or if it's going to be a solid door or whatnot, or a hollow door. And then that would also get into the details of the handles of the door, the hinges, and what people sometimes don't realize is like all these little things. Like sometimes you think, yeah, you just go by a door and whatever, but if you want the space, like when you walk into a space and you see all the details are considered, it's because that's been done by an interior designer or an architect that who has specified these specific elements and put it into the building. So it's not just smacked up together with a typical door that's, you know, has two different color hinges or two different hinges that are not working for the space. So the partition furniture with Miller, and then after that usually comes the reflected ceiling plan. So the reflected ceiling plans to some might be a little bit confusing, but it's basically looking up at the ceiling and viewing all the light fixtures. Oh, I forgot one. Well, no, yeah, RCP is next. And another form of it is an RCP. That's what we call it, reflected ceiling plan. Anyway, so that shows where all the light fixtures are going to go. On that plan, you put in all your light fixtures, and then you put in these lines to attach to show where each light fixtures are going to attach to the switches of the space, just to show how it all works. Then there's the power and communication plan. So that basically shows where all the outlets are going to be, the height of the outlets, where the data communication, internet, all that kind of thing is going to be placed throughout the space. And then that further, so that's all considered. And then those are done by symbols. I forgot to mention on all these plans, they're all labeled with whatnot. Then there's notes to specify different details about it, and then there's also dimensions. So each plan has dimensions of, you know, how thick the walls are going to be, where they're lying on the floor plan to the outside wall. And then there's the title block for it, which gives more description about it. Has a key plan on where it is on site. Has a north arrow to show where it is on the coordinates. So different elements like that. After the power and communication plan, there's usually I'm trying to think here. There's always like more and more plans. And the next one would probably be a finishes plan. Depending on the company or designer, there's so many other elements that can be put in, and sometimes when a plan gets too complicated, it's best to split it up, because one thing is, if it's really difficult to read, then people can't read it. People who are building it cannot read it because it's too much. So I've during school, I've been that person who includes all the details and too much. So it's better off to hold back on some of the extreme details and keep it to a minimum, because it makes it easier for people to read. So I've learned that to the years to be more neater and reduce on very complicated details. So after that comes the finishes plan. So that's when you actually go in and specify what's the flooring going to be, what's the trim going to be, what's the paint color going to be, what's the type of walls, if there's going to be a feature wall, if there's going to be tiles on the wall, and then also the ceiling, what's going to be on the ceiling. Is it going to be a gypsum board with matte paint? And that's when you kind of specify in the charts, you will further specify what material is going to go on there. So if it's paint, then you go through all the information about the paint. And then what's going on the floor. So is it going to be hardwood? Is it going to be tile? Is it going to be carpet? Or is it going to be poured concrete? Like that's where you go with that. And then and again, a chart to follow. So that's kind of the main typical plans. Then after the plans, there usually comes sections. So there's sections, and then there's elevations. So an elevation basically looks at a building and just views it. Oh no, that's an elevation. So you're basically standing outside and you're just viewing it, or you're standing in the inside and you're just viewing a wall of something. But a section actually decides to take a whole building and cuts through. Now it might cut straight through, it might cut and jag and whatever, and that just shows little about the cutting, and that is specified in the plan to show where you've done those cuts. So after the sections, then there's usually one of my favorite parts is the 3D model of it. So there's either like a perspective that can either be hand drawn. All of these plans can be drafted on drafting paper, and it's all to a certain scale. So it's either done with feet or millimeters. We have to know both in the industry, especially in Canada, because it's all back to forth. In the furniture industry, it's all in inches. In in the construction industry, I believe it's feet, and then because of the building code, it's all in millimeters. And but Canada's being metric, it's all over the game. So if you don't, and there's different apps and different things that you can use to get it down. But after you work in it for a while, it becomes very, very easy. And as soon as you kind of get a picture idea of like, okay, so this is a meter, this is a foot, the comparison, and then you kind of can guess. Sometimes a door reference is the best way to go, I find. And then you can kind of see how many doors would this be and whatnot. And then square footage as well, so I'm knowing the different square feet. But I'm getting off topic there. So yeah, usually with these perspectives, they're done and then they are rendered. So they're done. There's isometric. There's 2-point and 1-point perspective, and so a lot of the times, like my favorite program, and my CAD teacher probably wouldn't appreciate this. I do like AutoCAD. It's very precise, but then there's another one called SketchUp. It's good. I've heard of like floorplanner.com. I've used that one, and yeah, hand drafted for sure. And then there's my favorite one as of now, and most people in the industry love it. And I took one class of it, but I further taught myself because it was just, I loved it so much. It was a lot better program. Is Revit. So you're allowed to, you can, each one, AutoCAD, and there's AutoCAD Architecture in 3D, which I've learned as well. But AutoCAD is very, very, very precise, and it's almost like a coding program, so you need to put in the right formula to get the outcome, and sometimes it's hard to remember all those formulas. With Revit, it's a little bit of combination of SketchUp and AutoCAD together, and it's probably the best way to do a floor plan model, sections, elevations, and everything all in one, which reduces time. Time is always a huge thing because there's all these little elements that have to go into it. So yeah, Revit's probably one of my favorites because every element's just there and everything's built. It won't allow you to build anything that can't be built in real life. So if you put like a door on top of 2 walls, it's not going to do it. It just can't. Like it's just not going to work. But in AutoCAD, you could put things wherever you want, and there's not going to be a notification if it's not going to work. So which is another cool feature in Revit. I could go on and on about Revit, but the best thing is you draw and plan, but then it turns it in, like it makes it a 3D element already, and it creates, because you're basically drawing in 3D, but then you're viewing it in all these different ways. Instead of AutoCAD, you'd be drawing in 2D and then building a model on top of it, which in my opinion is just extra. And time is huge. Time is huge for this industry. So after the perspectives, usually they're rendered, and then with that, sometimes there's different elements of doing like a walkthrough video that you can do for your presentation to show people. And now there's even like these so some running programs are like Bloom Unit, V-Ray, I think, Rhino, I believe, then I think the other one, Enscape's another one. Enscape's probably the most easiest one I've ever experienced, to be honest, and I think that's incredible if there's something that easy out there that works with Revit and SketchUp. So that's it for the construction drawing packages. In addition to that, there's usually panels that you would have to do to present your different things, and there's a presentation that goes along with it. In my course, I studied at Sheridan and then now Georgian. At Georgia, we learned the concept of manuals. So manuals are like literally this big, and they are full of information based on your project, from all the spec sheets, from all the research, from the different phases in the design concept. So there's, there's a partie development, then there's the initial research, those prototypical research. So you're referencing different other buildings like this. What do you like about them? What can be gathered as information to be put in to your new design? Different things like that. So there's a bunch of research that has to go in on the front end, and then there's the what needs to physically go into the plan. So research about those elements. What do you want your building to feature? So there's like the technical stuff, and then there's the concept, which is, concept is kind of like a weird narrative, not a weird narrative, but like a narrative, like for example, I'm doing one, it's called individually connected. So it's something that gets your mind thinking, and how to show it was a puzzle piece that they were connected, but they were individual puzzle piece connected. So it's a different way to looking at it, and there might not actually be puzzle pieces in the building, but there might be like all these different rooms that are outside of a building, but they're connected, and that's the whole, I guess, theme of the building. So it's really cool to have that element into it, and people don't really know about that. Like when you just enter a building, you're like, walls, doors, whatever. But there's a lot more further development that's ahead of that. So there's usually that package of the manual, which is all your research component. Then there's the construction drawing package, which is all your legal documents to send to people to actually build it and go for permits. And then there is the presentation, and those would be in like the presentation to present it all. And then after that, there's the panels that would show all your plans, kind of like a way to present it. And then there's also with that all the finishes on there, so you would have the physical finishes so people can see it. So that's usually during the course, that's what we do a lot of. We did learn history and stuff like that about design, but a lot of the presentations, especially the studio, does that, and that's really what we do as designers, is work on that information on that phase, and then when the project goes, kind of see how it's going and making sure that it physically gets built to what we expect. So it's a lot of planning, a lot of time, and I've said this to a lot of people it's a very difficult thing to do. It took me a little bit longer to do, but going between different schools. But one thing that it showed me was the difference between one school and the other, and how they were both similar and different. And it gave me more knowledge on interior design than ever before, because you had different profs and different focuses, and by merging them together, I feel like I've come a long way, and even more so. So it's made all the difference, and I think that, I'm not saying go switch schools halfway through the semester, or halfway through your years. It's a difficult thing, but if you don't look at the positives of it. You're going to be gaining a lot more knowledge than if you were staying at that same place. So that's kind of interior design in a nutshell at this point. And I will further keep you updated on where my career path goes with interior design and everything like that. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope this can inspire you to look at interior design in a new way.